Welcome to Episode 3 on Steam's cheapest games, where I try out the cheapest games available on Steam to see if they're actually worth spending your time on. It's an experiment, but they tend to end up more like reviews when you boil it all down. On the cards this time we have Morphopolis. I don't really understand where the opolis part comes from, as it has nothing to do with city-states. However, the morphing side of things is covered. The game is pretty much a hidden object game with a few puzzles here and there, and a point-and-click interface for getting around. While it's not a story as such, it follows the growth of an aphid grub through metamorphosis as it travels around collecting various items and passing them on to other insects and gaining new abilities as it goes. The game is split up into 5 separate stages, each of which are a particular part of the little aphid's evolution. These can be treated more or less as save points, as once you've started a section you have to complete it there and then or start that segment from scratch. I learnt this by accidentally quitting after the last task on the second stage. Whoops. I think the most impressive thing about this entire game is the art style, which is very pretty and full of colour. It's the main reason it caught my eye in the first place. It's all hand drawn, and while the animations are simple, it works really well. If you ignore the occasional moments where the movement system gets confused and you rotate on the spot as it struggles to find the correct path. The way you get around is by clicking and holding where you want to go, but given that some parts of the level are directly in line with another path, it sometimes just stops and can't decide whether to move on or stay where it is. It is quite easy to resolve this, as you can usually grab and drag the way you want to go and tease the little aphid along. You have to do this a few times throughout the game when you need to get to an area which is directly at the end of a path. The rest of the game is basically clicking on creatures and plants. You are then given a set number of items to find to satisfy their requirements. Most of these are quite easy to find, but there is a recharging hint mechanism if you do get really stuck, which will chime if there's nothing of interest in the area, and if you click again it will point directly at one item. Once you've retrieved the set number of items, it will either unlock a new area, activate an animation, or send you into a little puzzle to solve, which can be anything from pipe puzzles, solitaire or match puzzles to name a few. Most of which are quite easy to solve, but there was a couple of times I was stumped, and you don't get any hints in the puzzles themselves. The first one I got stuck on was the one where you need to watch chimes of some torch bugs and memorise the pattern and repeat it back, but because of the long gap between the different patterns I didn't actually realise that was what I was supposed to be doing. And the other puzzle which really racked my brain was the puzzle right at the end, which you have to match up some beetle heads, bodies and necks. I managed to get most of the way, but just couldn't work out how to do the last step, and I think this is actually where most of my game time went. I don't have a problem with having some challenging puzzles in there, but the last one was far more complex, and it didn't really fit in given that the rest of the game was actually quite easygoing and relaxing. The music really plays into this aspect, as it's all quite laid back and classical. It's a great backing to what's going on the screen, but if you do get stuck in one puzzle you will be listening to the same part over and over again. I would have liked to have seen more emphasis on the evolution side of things, because although you gradually get bigger, grow wings, get the ability to jump and a few other things, they never actually play any part in the gameplay and end up purely being a visual indication of your progress. The closest you get to being able to use an ability is you build up a stag beetle mask and use it to put a fellow beetle in its place so that you can sneak your way past. But this interaction doesn't require you to actually do anything other than put it on. I was hoping to actually lock horns. Morphopolis is a very short game, which is expected for a cheap hidden object experience. It took me about 2 hours to complete the entire game, and by doing so you automatically pick up every achievement in the game, so there is no replayability whatsoever. That being said, I think it was worth setting some time to one side to try it out. It's not one that you're missing out on by not playing, but it is good to play a nice calm relaxing game every now and then, and this fills that role out nicely. But the question we're here to answer is this a value game worth spending a few pennies on? And I would say yes, it's worth the money you pay. You get a wonderfully drawn environment, and although it's a little awkward to navigate at times, it's still a pleasure to move around in. It was a little touch and go, but that's 2 good value games in a row. See you next time.